Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Douwe van der Werf, filmmaker and producer who loves telling difficult stories in a simple human way. Please enjoy Douwe van der Werf. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I am here with Douwe van der Werf. He is a filmmaker and producer, and I can't wait to chat with him about creativity. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Marika. Your name sounds a bit Dutch to me.
It is, yes. Marika is my full name, but I go by Mari. Nothing rhymes with Marika, so there are things that rhyme with Mari, and so it's easier for people to remember, but you can use either one. Marika or Mari is just fine.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to have you here to chat about creativity today, but before we dive in, if you could just take a minute and share a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
All right, so my name is Douwe van der Werf. I'm, like you said, a filmmaker, father of two boys. I live in Amsterdam. And basically the core of my work is to explain why an organization exists and why anyone should care. That's like sort of the very simple version of it. Mm-hmm. And then, then I make usually animations of that, sometimes video productions, usually animation, to make so that these organizations can skip the first half hour of their presentation on a conference and get into business right away.
Nice.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. No, you help people get right into the heart of what they're doing.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. And wonderful. And Amsterdam, and I love the capacity and ability to speak with people from around the world, because the experience of creativity, I have found, changes depending on the country that people are in. And so it's really exciting to get to speak with you from where you are today. So.
Okay, I thought you were going to say that the experience of creativity was universal, but then you actually said so. It's culturally specific, or
I don't know if it's culturally specific. Maybe it is. I think how people view creativity changes
yes.
based on where they live and the country that they live in, and
sure.
And I think how the culture views creativity impacts, changes from country to country. So.
Also, organizational culture looks at it very differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm excited to dive in. So what does it mean to you to be creative?
Work. No,
Work.
I'm just kidding. What does it mean to me to be creative? Yeah, well, I really like a quote that I saw by apparently Einstein. I'm not sure. You never know on the internet. But it's creativity is intelligence having fun.
Yeah.
So the opposite of that is we have this logical reasoning mind that loves numbers, that loves boxes, that loves A or B, and I think creativity is sort of, I think it happens very much in the subconscious mind, where you make connections between things that are very weird to the logical mind, and I think maybe being able to express creativity means having the courage to let it out and to just play with it, even though it doesn't make sense to yourself often when you first develop an idea, like there's something when my client's saying all these things, but I'm thinking about this other thing that doesn't seem related at all. And later you always know, right? Because you allow the thought in, even though it's weird at first.
Absolutely. I love that. The fun, intelligence having fun. I love that quote. And whether it comes from Einstein or not, I still think it's a great quote,
Yeah.
So, but I imagine being a filmmaker and producer, you navigate lots of challenges in that unexpected things that come up. How do you face and navigate creative challenges?
When I think of that, like I go from project to project,
Mm-hmm.
and each organization or client I work for is very different.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, every project is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most important things I do at the initial stages of the project is to listen, and to listen deeply. And like I will rarely share any idea in the first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I just gently interrogate them to delve deeper, because when you make films, you have to become the expert on what the film is about on a superficial level, of course, like you're not, but you have to very quickly get to the heart of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's, so for me it always begins with deep listening, and sometimes questioning the question, because sometimes there is a client thinks that they think they need a certain thing, but then when you dig deeper, you realize, oh wait, your real need is actually this, so therefore it might be, why don't you communicate that instead?
So through deep listening, you're able to kind of tease things apart a little bit more for clients and take that in a direction.
And I think another part of the listening is to and that relates back to the question you asked about creativity, is to listen. It's to listen in on myself and to let it to wander, to let it sit, not to I don't have to write a script immediately after the meeting. Definitely not, in fact. I just let it settle. I just let it rest. I'll be doing something relaxing, and it will be like, it look like I'm just being lazy, but I'm letting the computer in the back run through render things, and then eventually when I start writing, it's very easy.
I mean, that takes so much trust, I think, to let things marinate or let information cycle through the subconscious to get it to the point of ease in writing. I think many people struggle with that. How do you allow yourself to marinate in it when there's, I don't know, deadlines or anything that comes up that might put pressure or constraints on it?
I think it's so important to, in Dutch it sounds great, it aanpakken door loslaten. Grab something by letting it go.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it's like, it feels like some weird Zen koan in a way, but but it's, and I sometimes and I always stress this point when I give a guest lecture on the creative process, for instance. The act of letting it go is actually a way. Go slow to go fast is actually an incredibly powerful way to attack a creative challenge very effectively. But it's really hard to explain because it makes no sense whatsoever. The sentences I say right now, like they're like, okay, that's yeah, what does that even mean? And but yeah, this is sort of what I've arrived at after doing this for 20 years. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, so I
Nice.
can't make it easier than that.
Okay. But I get it. Even the words, they like settle into my system, and my body understands what it means to, you know, the slow down to speed up, the let go, that hold it and let it
Yeah,
go.
and maybe and I guess maybe it doesn't apply to people who are just coming from art academy,
Mm,
I think it's something that you develop over time. You gain the trust in your own creative capabilities.
yeah.
So maybe I wouldn't want to burden someone that just starting out with their creative with a creative career in this. Although um, letting go of the outcomes, not being
Yeah.
too fixated on the outcome allows for more play,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows for more openness,
Mm-hmm.
and thus to a better result. So
Yeah.
so but of course, like when you just start out, it does require a far more. Yeah, you do need to put more force behind the stuff you're doing. You need to push yourself
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more than later.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense. Like anytime you're learning something new or doing it for the first 100 times, you might have to have more effort in until it becomes more of a habit and more familiar to you. I like it. But I appreciate the reminder that with all of this, there is play that can happen, because I think that's something we forget about as adults. We see kids
Yep.
playing all the time, and
Yep.
yet as adults, play gets lost in our
Entire
life.
entire entire organizations forget it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that can, man, it's really hard to navigate when an organization has lost that.
Yeah. We are a very serious organization.
Yeah.
All our goals are measurable.
Mhm.
We work with KPIs.
Right.
And if you
Exactly.
don't make them, something's wrong, and you have to think harder, better, deeper. And that's just not true. Sometimes just taking it easy
Yeah.
just makes it easy.
It does. And it's way more fun. And the joy and happiness that comes along that are benefited from taking it easy and playing. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
And
the more
that's
important piece.
Yeah, and that's also why sometimes, yeah, it's just I think there are also like hardcore capitalist business reasons to be playful,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, I don't want to advocate that, but it's like that's so often overlooked. Like there's self-interest in making things fun, also for a large company, for their results.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I usually think maybe the biggest barrier against companies being creative is top-down control.
Mm-hmm.
When the top of an organization just doesn't trust the people in the organization to be able to think for themselves and to come up with great stuff,
Oh,
because once they're playing, oof, they're not working.
right. That's a hard sell to a
Yep.
company to say,
Exactly.
let's
Yes.
bring in some play, and it's actually going to be more effective and more productive than
Yep.
the cubicle work
Yeah.
that you're
Like
experiencing.
especially like I can imagine that making the case for putting a few beanie bags in the corner,
Mm-hmm.
making the case for going for a walk in the park,
Yeah,
making that is not making money, but it
right.
is.
It is. I hope those of you listening take some of this back to your companies and incorporate more play,
It
because
can
you'll
be a
have way
very
more fun.
hard sell.
It can. It totally can. And yet, there is that something you said about the trust trusting your employees and trusting that people can come up with new and innovative ideas, excuse me, in their own way. It doesn't have to be the head of the company's way, like giving the permission to explore and play and imagine new ways of doing things is when like real innovation happens. So,
Yep.
Well, I'm going to ask you a completely different question because I'm super curious. What is your earliest memory of being creative?
Well, what comes to mind is playing with Legos.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Because, Lego allows you to build your own toys. So,
Yeah.
And it's just, and also what comes to mind is that my parents used to have this Persian carpet with lots of patterns on it. And I would have my little toy cars and I would use them as roads and there'd be turns and everything. So the whole pattern would become 3-dimensional and I'd just be using that as a backdrop for the cars.
I love it. That's amazing. And that's something many people have in their home, a carpet that has a design on it. And how are you, using it?
And we're thinking that when you say earliest memory of being creative seems to suggest that you need to create something. But it's more, but it doesn't always involve creation. It's more like playing, combining stuff so new meaning emerges out of it.
Yeah, and imagination. I mean, so much imagination to turn a carpet into a road system and then engage with it and play.
Without having to cut it up with scissors.
Right. Probably wouldn't have gone over well had you done that.
No, absolutely not.
I love it. Yeah. When you think about inspiration in your life, who or what inspires you?
I think the answer is twofold. One is a non-answer because it's everything.
Yeah.
And the other one is nature, because I think in nature all the sensory information that I've gathered throughout my days and weeks, they fall into place when in nature I sort of on a walk let go. So it comes back to letting go again. And so that's basically that. Yeah.
What is it about letting go that allows you to engage deeper? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I understand it, it's letting the subconscious do its work. And the subconscious is sort of like the slow supercomputer. I don't know if you've ever read the book Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
I have not read that.
It's a book about system 1 and system 2, and one system is currently talking. It's completely aware. Of course, relating to talking with the thing in the back.
Yeah.
But the subconscious is the thing that can solve the really tricky subjective stuff where you go like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. Because there are so many variables. There's absolutely that's what the subconscious processes. And I think that it sounds a bit like a magical something, but it's not. I think if you ask yourself a question very, very clearly, so you really then you let it go, the answer eventually will come with the really complicated stuff. I think when there's lots of things involved.
Yeah. So doing something that doesn't require a lot of thinking allows that subconscious to really work on the solution to something.
Yeah, and I think when being in nature, I don't know. I think to a lot of people, it sort of feels like coming home, right? Because we come from nature,
Yeah.
and then nature doesn't ask us any complicated questions. It doesn't ask us anything. We can just be in nature, and that's why I think that then the subconscious goes like, hey, have you thought about this?
Right.
Hey, that thing that you were worried about a few days back? Well, here's the answer.
Yeah, I think that getting to that point of just being in nature or just being anywhere is really difficult for so many people. Do you have any ways that you would say things to try to just be in nature as opposed to doing or like overthinking or how do you get to that space of just being?
Yeah, I would say mindfulness meditation. Just sitting with whatever there is.
Yeah.
And I've done that for about 20 years.
Nice.
And when you start with it, it makes no sense whatsoever. You're like, what the hell am I doing here? My mind is racing, and it's just, this is terrible. I hate this. and that's when I think that's when a lot of people stop, and it's very understandable, because it is terrible, because when you're just starting out with meditation, the head is not used to this, like just sitting with you always have to do something with your thoughts, right? But you don't, but it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up mindfulness meditation. It's something I too have done for decades as well, and it's learning how to be with what is, that uncertainty. And I think there's so much of creativity in uncertainty. This idea of dancing with uncertainty allows creativity to really thrive. And yet many people are so afraid of uncertainty. They need to know,
of course,
what it's going to happen next. And so
but because if you think of it from an evolutionary perspective, uncertainty is the worst thing in the world.
Right.
Because what if there's a predator out there? It's
very
gonna
true.
Bite your head off. And then
Exactly.
You're dead.
Whoops.
so in that, and maybe in that way, creativity is very counterintuitive, very against our animal, against our lizard brain, I would say. Yeah. It hates creativity.
And yet children whose prefrontal cortex and higher brain hasn't fully functioned are just steeped in that creative world. And it makes me think of what's happening in terms of kids seem to be really okay living in uncertainty and playing with uncertainty, and it's not necessarily uncertain to them. They're just in it.
Yeah. I guess well, I don't want to pretend to be an evolutionary biologist, by the way. It's just something I really find interesting. But so what I was thinking, but it's a layman's perspective, because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Is that I guess that kids need the playfulness to learn very quickly. They need the openness, and then and once the openness stops, the learning stops, and then you have to hold on to hold on to things, sort of like material things or certainties, like
right.
dogma.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's so curious. I am not an evolutionary biologist either.
Neither am I.
But as a therapist and having worked with children and understanding just enough about the brain to be a little dangerous, it makes sense to me. But the idea of being comfortable with uncertainty really allows creativity to blossom and show up in your life in a big way. And I think you're right that mindfulness can really support that, being able to sit with uncertainty and not have to do, I'm using big air quotes, not have to do anything about it.
Yeah, and it never gets easy.
Right. This is true. Some days are easier than others, but I think the same could be said for creativity. Some days it's easier to activate creativity than others as well. So,
yeah.
Well, how would you encourage others to find creativity in their lives? Maybe anything other than mindfulness.
Do you know The Artist's Way?
Yeah.
Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to start because basically basically opening up is the whole purpose of that. And so yeah, Julia Cameron's I would recommend Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. Yeah, and just surrender. Like I don't want to say too much about it because it's something you just have to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's a commitment.
So if anybody's listening that's struggling, just order the book now. Don't think about it too much. I'm not getting paid by Julia Cameron.
No, nor am I. But that's a great suggestion. No, I love it. This has been such a treat to chat with you about creativity. And I just have a couple more questions. But what does it feel like to be creative?
What comes to mind is aliveness. You feel very connected to the moment. You feel strong because the things that come out of your imagination, you manifest them, you create them. So it's you take it out of your mind and then you can show it to other people. And this, of course, this leads to being understood, as a person. So I don't know, many good feelings.
Yeah, the aliveness really resonated with me. It does. I feel alive talking about creativity, expressing things in a creative fashion, being in that present moment experience. There is an aliveness that comes with it.
It's really interesting because I hadn't made the link between creativity and mindfulness so strong yet, but it sort of like happens in this conversation and it makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really lends itself because creativity isn't just happening in our brain. Like our body is involved in expressing creativity and doing something creative, and mindfulness doesn't only happen in our brain, our internal landscape of our body system too, we're aware of and present with in mindfulness. So I think they go hand in hand way more than the world understands or thinks or believes. I do really like to see that that creativity was like on the top three most what do you say? The skills.
The skills in demand on Forbes. That's like and that's so it's. I really like that it's being more appreciated, and I think the difference between now and 10 years, let alone 20 years ago, is really, really big.
Yes.
I think that there's definitely a shift going on.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I think Ken Robinson, I think his name is, his TED speech about education.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that had an immense. I think it's the most popular TED speech, and rightfully so, because it addresses it so beautifully.
Yeah. If you're listening, go watch that TED Talk. It's great. But
I'm bad with names, but Sir Ken Robinson, right?
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, exactly.
That is his name. But I think, he's done a lot for kind of demystifying creativity. And that's part of this podcast too, to talk more about creativity so people hear it, use it in more regular conversations. It's not just something that only certain people have, or a gene that only a certain special few people have. We all have that capacity.
And it's not just for fun.
Right.
And it's not just weird. It has it has very tangible functions to society. Yes, and referring back to the question you asked about how to be creative, like say a general sense of safety, I would say is the prerequisite for it.
Yes.
And that also maybe reverts to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not feeling generally safe in your life, it makes sense that creativity doesn't come out the way it could.
Absolutely.
But I also totally agree with you that that everybody is inherently creative.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, this has been such a treat to chat with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And if people wanted to learn more about the things that you do, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can check out my website. It's Douwe.works, DOUE.works. Works is the extension.
Okay.
There you can see my works.
I love it. And I'll put that in the show notes so people have easy access to it as well. And
great.
Thank you so much. This has been delightful.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.